Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the Creative Shop Talk podcast. It's me, your friend, Wendy. I hope you are having a fabulous day. I am having a fabulous day. I had the great opportunity to interview my friend, Stephanie Miller Vincent, and we just had such a great conversation, and I was so excited to invite her here to the podcast to talk more about how hospitality basically is your unfair advantage, one of them, going in to the rest of this year. And hospitality isn't just being nice, and we're going to chat a little bit about that. It is about training your staff, it's about being an employer of choice, it's about paying attention and really focusing in on caring about people, about being thoughtful about your customers. There is such an ROI on that and a return on your investment in more ways than just profit. It's wonderful for your brand awareness. It's wonderful for marketing of all the things. That's wonderful. However, there's also an internal joy that comes from serving people well, which if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably why you started your business. You care about your products, you care about your people, and all the business stuff kind of sometimes gets in the way. And so Stephanie is going to share with us conversation and tools and ideas around how to care for your employees, why that's important, why we need to really think about our customers' experience and how to just add those little thoughtful things. We like to call that wow and delight in our retail marketing accelerator and how I teach marketing. But it's really important to remember it all stems from hospitality. It all stems from being of service to our customers. Our customers are served by our people, right? Our clients, our team, sorry, and our clients are served by our team. And it's really important that we are attentive to the whole ecosystem of our people, the people that we care about, our customers and our team. So just give away everything. Let's jump in. I'm so excited to have Stephanie here with us. Again, Stephanie Miller Vincent. She has decades of experience. She's going to explain to you a little bit about her background in hospitality. And I think she's a cool human being, and I love hanging out with her, and I love her philosophy around hospitality. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation today with Stephanie. Running a retail business doesn't have to be so hard. Welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast, the go-to podcast for creative shop owners, studio owners, and independent retailers. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, retail business coach and mentor. Each week, I'll share simple, proven business strategies, inspiring stories from fellow retailers, and advice from industry experts. Together, we're going to work to find the success you want from your retail business with more profits in your till and a little more joy in your life. Well, thank you for being here. I have Stephanie in the house, and I'm so excited to have you here, Stephanie, today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and what brought you here. It's a lot, I know, right? Let's go. Let's go. Let's jump in.
It is a lot. It is a lot. So, Stephanie Miller Vincent, I own a company called SMillerVision. And what brought me here, Wendy, is I've spent 35 years in the hospitality industry, much of it on the South Shore of Nova Scotia. And then I spent 12 years in Louisiana, on the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, in the casino business. So, always resorts and mostly always food. And I left the industry in 2019, broken, bruised, battered. I mean, put a B word to it. I had it kind of thing. And then came back not long ago with this company. There's a huge need for mentorship in hospitality and in service-driven businesses in general. And I couldn't sit still any longer.
So tell us a little bit about hospitality. So retailers are listening right now. My audience, and the listener right now that's listening is in the service industry, and hospitality is my buzzword of the year. And I hate saying buzzword of the year, but I think it's so important in where we are in life right now in retail.
Yep.
I mean, it's not just me saying it, is, it's predicted to be. So hospitality is not always what people think it is. So hospitality, can you talk about what your definition, and you and
Yes.
I have very, very similar. That's why you're here, because I was like, oh, we've chatted
Yep.
to get you on the podcast. Hospitality is not just being nice. Because I think that's what people like, oh, we're really friendly and nice. That's okay. Okay,
No,
can you explain
no,
what your definition is of hospitality? Hmm.
yeah, it's not just being nice. It's not an industry. It is the core of who you are and how you take care of people,
Right.
is what I believe. And it can be a learned behavior. For many of us, there's something in us that it just kind of comes naturally. But if you've not been mentored, you can still learn hospitality, right? It's really caring about someone from start to finish. If they're in your shop, in your store, in your restaurant, they're the priority. And it doesn't matter if there's one of them or 101 of them, they feel like they're the most important person to you at that moment.
So I love to explain that it's about how we make people feel seen, or because
Yep.
retail mistakenly, I think some people mistakenly think it's about selling stuff.
Yeah.
And the retailer listening to this podcast is not just selling stuff. We have, and because they can go on Amazon and buy stuff. Like they like
Right.
there's so why would we go, or we can go, to our competitors, and how we stand out, in my opinion, right now is about making people feel seen
Yep.
and about experiencing something.
It's relationships.
Definitely relationships. So when we talk about hospitality and when we talk about serving people, so again, we've established it's not just about selling them this widget, it's about selling them this beautiful yarn and presenting it, and it's all the senses in the shop and
Hmm.
all the things that, but one of the core things that I think we neglect is, and I'm hoping that you agree with me on this, it's about our staff. And I think we might have that. Like I have that. I know I have that, but I've struggled in the
Yep.
past with, meaning I really want Stephanie to have the best experience buying yarn
Yes.
shop today. Like
Yep.
that, I just like, I really do. I'm
Yep.
attentive to you. I'm attuned to you. Would you say, and I think I'm hoping that you agree with me, that also seeing our staff, because they're the front line, right? And
Yep.
understanding what they need to understand about hospitality is important.
Yeah, so many levels. So I talk a lot about we need to look after our team the same way we look after our guests. And we call them guests in
Yeah.
the tourism industry more often than not, rather than customers. You can't skip that step. You can't, as a business owner, expect your team to look after your
Mhm.
customer or your guest in a way that you don't look after them. So if you're not creating employee experiences, which is
Mhm.
what, we call them at SmillerVision, if you're not creating employee experiences, why do you expect your employee to create customer experiences? How does it skip that step? Because you're exactly right. It's not about selling things, it's about relationships. So if the relationship skips a generation, doesn't
Right.
make any sense at all. It just doesn't work.
So what are some ways? There are people listening right now, I'll tell you right now, that are thinking like, I hired them to do a job and like, to sell to, and I tell them
Yep.
and I show them what to do. But what are some practical ways that we can help our team? I say team, help
Yep.
our team understand the hospitality experience. And I mean, understand what that means, or how can we give them that experience? And how do we, so I guess what do we do for them, and what can we do for them to help them understand our customers? And I agree. Like we can't have successful retail without, and it's not about sales training. It's about
Nope.
more, it's more than that. Can you elaborate on that? Can you
It's the
elaborate on what
heart of
I'm
the
trying
training.
to say? So, yeah,
It's the heart of the training, right? It is not the checklist of
right.
you can tell someone to greet people as they come into your store. If you don't tell them how, and not please say hello, but what does that feel like when they say hello to you as you walk through the door? It's really about leading by example
Mhm.
and not just expecting that because you've hired them and you've emulated that behavior that they've noticed it, right? It's like, well, I'm always nice. doesn't mean that they've caught on to what you're doing or why you're doing what you're doing. And that, I think, is the biggest difference. We have to show what the heart is. We have to stop taking the task list away to a point where it's like hand it to someone and then they're asked to perform it. We have to explain to them the connection and how to build relationships. I don't know that everybody's had the benefit of building relationships until they become part of your team. You can't assume that. And I think that's what happens. We also assume that, well, I can do it. Everybody must be able to do it. And in fact, you could be nurturing that employee, that team member, right from the start. Obviously you hired them for a reason, not just a warm body, we'll
Yeah.
presume. You saw something in them. So take it that much further and just see them and hear them, and then they will see and hear your guest, your customer. There's nothing worse than somebody asking, a team member asking for something, a special day off, and not getting it, and then expect it to behave appropriately with the customer all day long, right? We got to have heart. We've got to have heart.
So how do we keep boundaries? I mean, we have to, I agree, we can't run a business from a
Yep.
spreadsheet or from a checklist. I really don't think that is, I mean, spreadsheets and checklists are important. There has to be
They
expectations.
are.
We
Yep.
can't have people running why. I mean, we can't have people, and I hate saying that. We have to have bumpers, and I call them guardrails and bumpers, and
Yes.
here's how we do things here. This is our procedures and policies and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot mandate, or I don't know what the word is. We can't mandate or we can't make them be nice. Like, so
Right.
we can't mandate, pleasantries, and so we're going to show them, because I do believe that it's all about show,
Yep.
not just tell. We're going to show them this is how we do things here. We're going to explain the culture of our business, and our culture, hopefully, of our retail business is
Yes.
one of hospitality first for our guests. Again, I also use guests, but how do we show, I guess, how is there a way that we can train people? And I hate saying train because that makes it sound like we're like, but really encourage, I guess, other than, or is that your biggest tip, is like have them emulate? Do we involve them in the process? Do we, like, what are
Yeah.
your practical tips that we can, because there is a frustration level for a lot of retailers, a lot of my clients anyways, a lot of my inner circle members, a lot of my mastermind members, they come, like, have these great staff members. They care about them. They pay them, and that's part of it. I know we don't just, I know you pay
Yep.
me, and I ask you to do these things. And how do we encourage that next level of thoughtfulness or, hospitality from their part?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We have to share certain things with them, and we have to know what the boundary is. We may share things with longer term team members than we share with brand new team members, but they have to understand the reasoning behind it. It's not the old, do it because I said so
Yeah.
philosophy. That doesn't fly. It should have never been okay, but it certainly isn't okay nowadays. So, if I don't know, if it's important to you that the customer, the guest is greeted at the door rather than standing behind the counter, don't just tell me that's what you want me to do. Explain to me as an employee why you want me to do that, what difference it makes, why it sets us apart, right? We're in this day and age, we're competing in all kinds of different levels. We're competing for employees, we're competing for customers and guests. We want to be the employer of choice, and we want to be the first thought when somebody says, I need A. If you have that, you want to be the next word out of their mouth. So you have to share with your employees why that makes a difference. Why them standing behind a counter, say, I'm thinking restaurant terms and translating it to retail, but why standing behind a counter on a phone, or if someone asks you for something you don't have it, the answer isn't just, no, we don't have that.
Mm.
It's the second step of, we don't have that, but maybe this would help, or yet maybe this would help. And it really is creating a relationship. And so much of it is leading by example. It's hard to say that because we're all busy, but if you don't lead that employee, team member, And we use team and not family, Wendy, to set those boundaries, right? If you think of team levels and coaches and all the different levels of players, sometimes the members of the team don't work out and they move on to different things. Your family is always your family, like it or not. So family is a trigger word for me and for us in the company. It's team. We're all in this together. We can't expect what we don't do. And I go back to it time and time again. Create the expectation, have two-way conversations. Sometimes just because you've been doing it for 5 years or 50 years in your business doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Maybe there's a new way of doing it that elevates the service, right? Because it's what we're always looking for. What is that something special that I can do? Maybe there's something that we're doing that's kind of out of style or off kilter with the business today. Things are changing. Not always should we be suggesting the next product. We have to be really careful.
Yeah, that's such a great point. A couple of things to pull it from there. It is true, business is always evolving, and we do as owners of small businesses and independent businesses, I think that we sometimes get stuck in it's our way or the highway, right? Like not our way or the highway, but I mean, it is that same thinking. So I love that reminder. And this is a great reminder. We can't create in a silo, like we can't create just, from here. So we have to make sure, and I see this a lot. So retailers that usually because we start our businesses, we open our stores by, single store, whatever,
Yep.
and it's this brand that we're building and and it is our creation. It is our vibe. It is our business. It is our
Hmm.
culture. But as our businesses grow and as any business grows, I mean, I've been self-employed for 27 years and we've had four businesses. And as businesses grow, so do our roles in that business.
Yes.
So does the culture in it should evolve and grow. And I think, we neglect sometimes to bring in our team members into that. So thank you for saying that and talking about that. The other point that I want to talk about, I love that you just reminded us, and I hear this so much, and I am so on board with you around team versus family. We're like a
Mhm.
family here. We're like a family here. My staff are like family.
Mm-mm.
That is not a healthy place to be with business. And I have always had really great staff members and a lot of people know and listeners know that we used to own a commercial cleaning business, which is notorious for turnover in staff. We had zero turnover. Like we had
Right.
such a low, we had
Yep.
we treated our staff well, but I never used the word family. We were conscientious and attentive and, we paid attention. We treated them really well because we didn't want that turnover. And I think using the word family, you can't fire family if they're not performing.
Nope.
You can't move roles. You can't say, you're no longer, you can't ask them to move on. Also, it puts on them. And I feel like it also puts on them. They don't feel comfortable, coming and saying they need to make a change or leave or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that was also, thank you. I pulled that out from as soon as you said it, I was like, yes, we have not spoken about that. But that also comes back to, again, just being respectful of our team, right? Like treating them like
Yes.
family. I like, like it's just completely different. And let's go to what I think is a really big opportunity of discussion here, becoming the employer of choice. I think retailers, especially, and I maybe this is probably across industry, and I've seen in other industries, but in retail, there's going to be, and it already is, there is a shortage of awesome workers, like people who want
Yep.
to be on our teams, awesome team members. I feel personally that this is just going to get harder and harder and harder, I think, as
Yep.
we're going along. I believe that you recently said that you were talking, in the tourism industry, it's predicted to be really hard in the next little while.
Yep.
So we want to be the place that people want to work. It doesn't mean we are, being walked over or
Mm-mm.
and it's not about numbers either.
Nope.
It's not about numbers because I actually recently have a client who had she poached somebody from some other store, and the other store was paying the employee much more, but
Oh.
we're being jerks to her, or not being
Yep.
jerks, but just being, indifferent, maybe. So they were paying her
Mm-hmm.
well and they expected her to be, she was an incredible employee. So this, my retailer, my client went and just said, if you ever want to work for me, I would love for you to come. And she is an employer of choice because she treats people so well. And
Yeah.
she just, and this girl felt that energy. She knew that she loved the brand. And then when she came for the interview, she said, "Oh, this is what I'm making at this place." And my client was like, "Gulp! Like I can't pay that." And the lady said, "I'll take it anyway." So because
Yeah.
she wasn't revenue driven. I mean, people are revenue. I mean, we have to pay them well. And but I think you're right. Being like that's your goal. That's where our revenue comes from. Like my
Yeah.
revenue growth comes from my employees on the floor. Like
Yes,
from them
absolutely.
and having them be the best that they can be, but they can only be the best they can be if I'm treating them like if they want to be part of my brand, correct? Like is that so what
Yeah,
are
they can only
yeah,
be the best if you treat them like they are the best. If you treat them
right.
like they're replaceable, disposable, I mean, pick your word, they they feel that.
Mhm.
They'll consciously or subconsciously they'll work in that manner. Maybe this gal was making more because they didn't know what else to do. They didn't know how to solve a problem. So it's like, I'll give you another quarter, I'll give you another
Yeah.
dollar, and
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
that that's going to solve the issue.
Mhm.
So I think it's a win-win for everyone. And I will say, we always use the line, if you know anyone just like you who's looking for
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
I'm hiring, right?
Yeah.
Small town kind of stuff. But it's not money. It's all of the other pieces. And I think the place to start, if you already have employees, start a conversation with them,
Mhm.
open and honest. Why do you work here? Why do you love it? What could we do better for you? No promises. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
preempt it with, we're learning more. And presumably not a survey on their phone, a conversation. You may even want to bring in a second party, to have that conversation if you're having tough times. But why do you stay? What would make you leave if you had to? And how do we fix that? Some people stay because your hours are flexible. It's like when I need a day off, you give that to me. If you stop doing that, I'm out the door. Right. So
Right.
you have to find out why the ones are staying that are there. And then as you bring other people in, you continue that culture. But it's employer of choice is not about I pay $5 more than anybody else.
Right. Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
can still be a pretty miserable place to go to work at a
Mhm.
huge wage or a salary.
Yeah.
What sets you apart makes you different so that when your employer wakes up in the morning, they're excited about coming to you. It's because they're involved in what you're doing. Maybe you're always evolving and changing different things. There's a new shipment coming. I'm excited about unboxing. I was thanked yesterday. It's not the obligatory, oh, it's Christmas, I should bring you a pizza. It goes back to the Valentine stuff, right? Don't give me flowers on the 14th. Give me flowers some other time just
Yeah.
because.
Yeah.
Just because. And the list is long, Wendy. I mean, I could go on for hours about the different ways, but I think you have to start with, why do people stay with you? And why would they leave if you had to change some of those things?
Wow, that's great. So you don't recommend, this is really funny because this was a discussion I just had recently with somebody. You don't recommend putting out surveys to your team, like on a form. I mean, is that something we should do first before a conversation or not at all? Do you think just a conversation?
Yeah, it feels impersonal. It
Okay.
feels less caring than what we're trying to do. Listen, if you've got 100 employees,
Right.
absolutely. You've
Yeah, yeah,
got some data
yeah.
collection you need to do. But if you've got half a dozen employees, it's a conversation. And whether it's a conversation you can have or you need to bring in someone else, bring me in. I'll come in and have a conversation with your team. Be straight with you. Have to be prepared for what you're going to hear.
Hmm.
And sometimes, depending on where you've already started things, somebody may have something they need to say that they don't feel comfortable saying. But if you're already on the road to employer of choice, you want to hear the good and the bad, right? Because
Right.
you want to keep
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
good, but you've got to
yeah.
fix the bad.
Right. We have to be open. Well, we have to be open to. And again, this is where a lot of independent business owners, I don't know if you see this a lot, but maybe you do in some of your I know you're working with more expanded industries now than just
Mhm.
hospitality, like, or just restaurants and
Yeah.
hotels. But what I think happens is, again, as it go right back to what I mentioned, I created this business, I opened up this
Yep.
store, I started small, and I'm bringing on people, do it my way. So we're not always open, but I think a good leader and like exactly what you said, a good leader and a good brand, and what's good for the brand, what's good for the business.
Yep.
Forget what's good for Wendy, like what's good for the business, right? What's good for this brand is being an employer of choice. What's good for this brand is having awesome, epic employees like that love that team members that want to be part of, and that the energy, I mean, is I always say the energy, and people think I'm talking about like woo-woo stuff, but what I mean is I can tell when you're fake and nice.
Yep.
Like I can so tell. And I shop local a lot, and I like my poor husband, like he won't go in a shop with me here locally, like, or he won't when we travel, because he's like, you're gonna
Yep.
say something, you're gonna think something, you're gonna want, like, I'm gonna want to say something, but
Yep.
energy is so good. And I'm very quick, actually, if I'm being honest, to tell people when I love their shop and the energy is so good and the
Yep.
team is good. I'm also really good at emailing and telling like the owners, like, I just had the greatest experience with Stephanie. I just want to
Yes.
let you know, like, she's awesome, right? Like, so, because
So
we don't
important.
hear that enough either. But then, so we used to have a policy with my cleaning business back many years years ago. We had a policy that when somebody made a comment about how clean the windows were in the office or whatever with,
Mhm.
like, again, cleaning staff, right? So janitorial staff, right? People who didn't feel lifted up a lot. So we had a policy that if Stephanie said anything positive about our service, we would say thank you very much, and then we would tell that employee. I cannot
Yes.
tell you how, like, those little comments, like, we sometimes it was a card, sometimes it was like, because we would
Hmm.
put little notes and say, like, really, sometimes it was a bonus, like I would just give a $25 little
Yep.
Starbucks card or something. Actually, it wasn't Starbucks because there was no Starbucks back in the day. I actually owned the coffee shop that we used to we used to give them, but like, we'd give them like free coffee, whatever. Like we would do something, but it was more about understanding that we appreciate you. And I think employees want it, and that's why they stayed working with us. So I totally buy into this,
If
people just
if
need
you
to
think
feel.
about if you think about the reverse of that, Wendy, if
Yeah,
that office was not happy with the level of cleanliness you were providing, you would
exactly.
absolutely tell the staff because you would need to correct it.
Yeah.
So if they're
Yeah.
doing something that's good, tell
Mhm.
them because that reinforces what I'm doing is the right thing. I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm appreciated. I'm going to keep doing it. And it goes back to the customer or the guest. If all of a sudden your sales went down in your business,
Oh,
you would reevaluate what's on the shelves, what's on the menu, whatever, and you would make a change
what
because
happened? Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah.
Maybe I like, I don't know, blue
Yeah.
shirts and that's all I'm selling, but it's
Mhm.
not the color of the year, so it's not selling. Do the same thing with your staff. Again, it's thinking about your team the same way you would think about your customer. And just take a moment and go, okay, if this were in my store and not the team in my store, how would I react to it?
Yeah, I love that. I have a really quick question for you. I could talk to you about this all day, but I want to honor your time. And I laugh because we discussed this before we came on. I'm like, they have so many questions for you.
Yeah,
I love, you have a thing called peak end rules. Could you briefly explain that to us?
yeah, sure.
Could you, and
So
yeah,
during a guest or a customer's visit with you, whether it's quick, whether it's long term, there are moments that they're going to remember. There should be a peak during their visit, and then the ending should be fantastic. The peak in retail may be that, they came in for a top and you found them a beautiful scarf, tie, brooch, whatever, and they felt special because you heard them. The end is, I don't know, maybe you put it in a special bag or there's a card in it, You have to realize what people are going to remember. They don't remember mediocrity. So if they come in, they get good service, but there's nothing special about it,
yep,
they might come back, they might go somewhere else. But if there was a peak, and I'll give you a restaurant example, and I'm sure you can give me a retail example. There's nothing better than a card on the table because you said it was your anniversary. So they've put a little anniversary card on your table. And when you go to leave, they give you, I don't know, 2 cookies for your coffee in the morning or something like that, right? You've got to it's that last impression is
Yeah.
just as important as the first impression, and then
Mhm.
what set you apart during the visit. Yeah,
Yeah.
peak end is you gotta climb the mountain, but stay on it. Don't fall off the other end. Don't give me a great experience and then not say goodbye to me when I leave your shop.
Absolutely. So I love to call, well, in my sort of marketing framework, not my sort of marketing framework, in the marketing framework I teach, I talk a lot about wow and delight. So it's very,
Yep.
very similar. Like it's like you're right, like average or mediocrity is not, especially in 2025, especially in retail right now. And this is again why we want staff who can think outside the box. This is why we want
Yes.
staff who can pay attention to conversations happening over there. A wonderful thing that like I encourage a lot of people to do is if I hear Stephanie and your girlfriend and you came in the shop and you're shopping and we're serving you and we're chatting and I've heard you say something about we're going for coffee afters, I'm pulling out two coffee or I'm pulling out a $10 coffee card or a free coffee card that I've bought
Yep.
up the road to support a fellow coffee shop owner.
Mhm.
Here, you guys are going for coffee. Here's coffee on us. People, that does not happen at your competitors down the road. There's just different things. Again, a little handwritten note inside a bag, after you bought that blue shirt or
Yep.
whatever, like you went home and it says, thank you, Stephanie, appreciate your business. Like that doesn't happen in retail, right? So what are the things
Nope.
and you have to change those up because then that becomes the standard
Yep.
average or
Yep.
whatever that, if you're doing
Somebody
that,
else is doing it.
yeah, or if you do that every day and then you don't do it one time, your customer's like, wow, how come she didn't thank me today? But you're absolutely right. We have to make impressions and we have to make people feel like I love that peak idea. Like, we've got to have something that makes them feel
Yep.
good. And I can hear retailers now in the, sort of thinking in the background, like, oh my gosh, like, but it's really being super thoughtful about our
Mhm.
clients and what would make them feel good. Recently did a podcast episode with Kim from Polka Dot Press. I always want to say Express. And she was talking about like the Disneyland, like when you go to Disney World and you feel so good when you're there, right? We want
Yep.
people to feel that in our stores. And that comes from having good employees because and hospitality, and it comes from having memorable moments that are not the norm. So I love that. Thank you. I When I saw that on your website and I've heard you speak about it, and I was like, that is something that I wanted to just bring up here today. So
Yeah.
sure, again, I could talk to you about everything else.
There's
So
so there's so much, Wendy. If I can add
yeah,
one thing, because I hear people think, "Oh, $10, I'm trying to make ends meet," and all of that type of stuff. It doesn't have to be monetary. Have a relationship with the coffee shop down the road
right.
that when you send someone with, I don't know, a code word, a sentence, whatever, that they're going to get extra special service there too.
Yeah.
We have permission to eavesdrop on our customers and
Oh,
our guests,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So take that and say, I heard you talking about coffee. I go to coffee shop X down the road. Tell them
Mhm.
Stephanie sent you. So you
Yeah.
that guest walks in the door and says, Stephanie sent me. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Lemon scones are our special today. They're warm out of the oven and I've got them just for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've recently had an experience like that shopping at one of my local retailer. Actually, she was recently on the podcast, Chris Waddy as well too. And I should have the podcast episode number, but I don't. 244, I think. Yeah. Anyhow, she's in a small town, built this business, so I'm at her store and I said, "Hey, I need some place to go, I'm going for lunch." And of course, she's a
Yep.
client, but so she's like, "Go to the taco stop and tell them Chris sent you down." And so it's a very small town, not like it's limited. And I probably wouldn't have gone there without her recommendation, if I'm being honest.
Hmm.
Walk in, same thing. I said, "Oh, Chris from Loopy Wool just sent me down here." And like we love Chris. And then they're like, "Here's some extra guacamole." I don't know what they get. I mean, it's just,
Yep.
but it is that relationship again building
Yep.
because you feel seen. And then they were extra special nice to us because we were
The,
business clients. And I don't know. It's just it feels good. I can't explain it in words, but I think we all are missing that in our world. And I think that's like what the world needs more of people being kind and thoughtful and seeing us. And it's not about marketing strategies about,
mm-mm.
wowing and delighting. I mean, it is because that is a marketing strategy because I want to be the chosen employer. I want to be the chosen
Yep.
brand. I want you to know how awesome my store is, right? Like Like we work really
Yes.
hard for what we do. And I don't work with anybody. I don't work with anybody who's not really proud of what they're doing. Like
Right.
we're not just selling widgets, wham bam, just move 'em in, move 'em out. I mean, we're selling a lot, but we're really proud of the businesses we're building. So being like sharing that, like that's hospitality in my brain as well too, is like sharing
Yep.
our gifts of this beautiful business we built. So anyway, I rambling on that, but
It's
I
connection,
yeah,
Wendy. You mentioned, the restaurant. I think it's connection, and it's
yeah.
continuing to connect with people. That's what's missing in most of our lives. We've lost some of it. We want it back.
Mhm.
We're starving for it. So if a store is offering it, retail, restaurant, whatever, I mean,
Yeah.
it hits in a different way.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I always like to remind people to think about where you like to hang out. Like, we call that the third place in retail. And I don't know if you call it at a hospitality.
No.
So you have home, you have work, and then you have a third place that you feel good.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's restaurant or, the local whatever that maybe,
Yep.
we love to like people are craving that third place right now. They're
Yep.
craving that like connection. I totally agree. This era that we're in right now, again, people just want to be seen. And I think that's what's going to make your competitors are not doing this. They're
Mm-mm.
not paying attention to this. The big box are trying and they cannot do it. Like
Nope.
there's like task teams. I get to sit on big retail boards sometimes and get to sit in these, and there's like all these big retailers trying to make things feel like connected. And I'm like, you can't do it, dude. You just can't. So, and it does help us stay relevant. And also we can stay relevant in our community. So thank you so much for being here. I'm trying to like talk fast so I can let you go back to work. So I appreciate you being here. Anything else before we wrap up? Anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, it was an honor to be here, Wendy. Thank you. And I love the connection in retail. There's that connection word again between if we're
Mhm.
serving people, then we're serving people. It matters not who the guest, customer, or the employee is. So it's great.
Okay. Well, thank you. We will have your information in all the show notes. Where's the
Fantastic.
best place to send people to website?
To the website. Yeah. SMillerVision.com.
All right, we'll have all of that information on the podcast notes, or you can click below if you're watching watching us. I'll have it all. It's in all the places. Anyhow,
All
thank
the
you. Thank you
places.
so much, Stephanie. I appreciate you being here. I think you're a gem. I think you're a gem to the
Thank
world.
you.
I love that we're almost neighbors. We both live in the South Shore, Nova Scotia. So
Yeah.
there's a fun fact for our listeners too.
For
So
trivia this week.
yeah. So everybody's got to come visit us in South Shore, Nova Scotia, because it's
They
pretty awesome.
do.
So,
It
all right.
is.
Thanks, Stephanie. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Wendy. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm so glad that you were here to join us this week, and I hope you found value in what we're sharing here. I want to remind you that our website has all of the show notes. You can find it at wendybatten.com/podcast. Everything that you need to hear about today's podcast is there. Also an opportunity if you need to reach out to me. If I can support you in any way whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. So thanks for joining us. Please leave a review, subscribe if you can, and never miss an episode. We hope to see you back here again next week. Thanks, my friend. Have a great week.